Rachel Morgan clutched her boarding pass with sweaty fingers, her heart hammering against her ribs as she raced through Terminal C of Logan International Airport. Her 7-year-old daughter Zoe trailed behind, struggling to keep up on her short legs. The final boarding call for Flight 302 to Chicago echoed through the speakers, each syllable driving a spike of panic deeper into Rachel's chest. "Mommy, I can't run anymore," Zoe whimpered, her pink backpack bouncing against her small frame. "Just a little further, sweetie," Rachel urged, glancing at her watch. The hands seemed to mock her, spinning faster than should be possible. She'd calculated everything so carefully, the subway ride, security lines, the walk to the gate. But the morning had unraveled spectacularly. First, the babysitter cancelled at dawn. Then Zoe spilled juice all over her clothes, requiring a last-minute change. The subway had experienced minor delays, which turned into 20 precious minutes lost underground, with no cell service to alert the airline. Rachel rounded the corner to gate C42, her hopes plummeting as she saw the closed jetway door and a sympathetic-looking gate agent already removing the Boston to Chicago sign from the display. "Wait," Rachel called out, lifting Zoe into her arms despite the protest of her shoulders. "Please, we're on this flight." The gate agent, her name tag read Patricia, offered a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. The doors have been closed for 4 minutes. FAA regulations prohibit—" "Please," Rachel interrupted, setting Zoe down and fumbling for her ID. "This interview is everything. I've been preparing for months. It's tomorrow morning, and there aren't any more flights tonight." Patricia's expression softened slightly at the desperation in Rachel's voice, but she shook her head. "I truly wish I could help. The aircraft has already pushed back from the gate. I can rebook you on tomorrow's 6:00 a.m. flight, but that would get you to Chicago at 7:45 Central Time." Rachel's interview at Mason & Blackwell, one of Chicago's top marketing firms, was scheduled for 9 a.m. It would be impossible to make it from O'Hare to downtown in that time frame. The weight of defeat pressed down on her shoulders. "Mommy, are we going to miss your important meeting?" Zoe asked, her wide brown eyes, so like her father's, looking up with innocent concern. Rachel forced a smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes things just don't work out the way we plan." She turned back to Patricia. "Is there anything else available tonight? Any other airline? I'll pay whatever it costs." The words came out before she remembered the precarious state of her bank account. Since Tom had left 14 months ago, walking out on 9 years of marriage with little explanation beyond needing to find himself, Rachel had been struggling to maintain their modest lifestyle on her freelance graphic design income. Patricia tapped at her keyboard. "There's nothing direct. I could get you on a 7:30 p.m. connecting through Detroit, arriving Chicago at 11:45 p.m. It's the last option tonight." Rachel nodded numbly. "We'll take it." After rebooking their flight, Rachel led Zoe to a secluded seating area near an empty gate. Her daughter's face had begun to crumple, the day's disappointments finally catching up to her. "I'm hungry, and my feet hurt," Zoe complained, flopping dramatically onto a row of connected airport seats. "I know, baby. Let's get something to eat in a minute." Rachel sat beside her daughter, fishing through her purse for her phone to send a desperate email to Mason & Blackwell's HR department. Perhaps they would understand. Perhaps they could reschedule. Perhaps this wasn't the complete disaster it felt like. As Rachel typed, Zoe shifted in her seat, then made a small sound of surprise. "Mommy, there's something stuck under here." Rachel glanced over to see her daughter peeling what looked like an envelope from the underside of the seat. "Zoe, don't touch that. It could be dirty." But Zoe had already pulled it free. "It has writing on it. It says, 'For whoever needs this today.'" Rachel took the envelope, examining it curiously. It was a quality cream-colored stationery sealed with actual wax, dark blue with what appeared to be a corporate emblem pressed into it. The handwritten message Zoe had noticed was penned in confident strokes of blue ink. "Someone probably lost it," Rachel said, turning the envelope over in her hands. There was no address, no return information. "No, Mommy, look, it was taped right here." Zoe pointed to a small piece of clear tape still clinging to the underside of the seat. "Someone put it there on purpose. Maybe it's treasure." Rachel smiled despite herself. "I doubt it's treasure, honey." "Open it! Open it!" Zoe bounced on her seat. Rachel hesitated. Opening someone else's mail seemed wrong, but this appeared to be intentionally left for a stranger to find. Curiosity won out. She carefully broke the wax seal and pulled out a single sheet of the same cream-colored paper, embossed with the logo of Horizon Enterprises, one of the largest technology companies in the country. The letter began without preamble. To whoever finds this, I've been sitting at this gate for 3 hours, watching people rush past, most looking stressed, frustrated, or simply resigned. I've been thinking about how a single moment, missing a flight, making a connection, a chance encounter, can alter the trajectory of a life. 27 years ago, I missed a flight from this very terminal. I was devastated. I had a job interview that I was certain would launch my career. Instead, I spent the night in this airport, talking to a stranger who convinced me to pursue my own venture instead. That missed flight changed everything. Today, as CEO of Horizon Enterprises, I'm passing through Boston again, and I've decided to leave 10 of these letters throughout the terminal for people who might be experiencing their own moment of seeming misfortune. Enclosed is a ticket to our annual Innovation Summit in Chicago this weekend. It's a $5,000 value, but the connections you might make there could be priceless. Perhaps this missed moment is actually redirecting you to something better. If you choose to use the ticket, come find me. I'll be the one wearing a blue tie with small white sailboats. Sometimes the winds that blow us off course take us exactly where we need to go. Best wishes, Daniel Wright, CEO, Horizon Enterprises. Rachel stared at the letter in disbelief. Tucked behind it was indeed a ticket to the Horizon Innovation Summit, scheduled for the next 3 days at the Grand Milan Hotel, the very hotel where Rachel had booked a room she could barely afford for her interview. "What is it, Mommy?" Zoe asked, trying to peek at the letter. "It's an invitation," Rachel said slowly, her mind racing. Horizon Enterprises was at the cutting edge of digital marketing platforms, exactly the field Rachel specialized in. The Innovation Summit would be filled with the top minds in the industry, potential clients for her freelance business, and perhaps even better job opportunities than Mason and Blackwell could offer. Was this real, or some elaborate prank? The letterhead looked authentic, the wax seal impressive. Rachel pulled out her phone and quickly searched for Daniel Wright, CEO, Horizon. Immediately, articles and images appeared of a distinguished man in his early 50s, with salt-and-pepper hair and kind eyes. Several photos showed him wearing his apparent trademark, blue ties with small white sailboats. Rachel's pulse quickened. If this summit started tomorrow, she wouldn't even need to reschedule her flight. The disaster of missing her original connection had just transformed into something entirely unexpected. "Mommy, why are you smiling?" Zoe asked, tugging at Rachel's sleeve. "I thought we were having a bad day." Rachel looked down at her daughter's confused face and felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. "I think our luck might be changing, sweetie. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best opportunities." As she carefully tucked the letter and ticket into her purse, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just pivoted on this random encounter with a stranger's generosity. The question was, what would she do with this unexpected chance? Rachel spent the next few hours in a daze, alternating between excitement and disbelief, as she and Zoe waited for their connecting flight. She had called the Mason and Blackwell HR department and left a carefully worded message explaining that something unexpected had come up and she needed to reschedule. It felt risky, turning her back on a sure interview for the promise of a mysterious invitation. But something in Daniel Wright's letter had resonated deeply with her. What exactly is an innova? Zoe struggled with the word as they sat at a small table in the airport food court, sharing an overpriced sandwich. "Innovation Summit," Rachel corrected gently. "It's like a big meeting where smart people share new ideas about technology and business." Zoe wrinkled her nose. "Sounds boring." Rachel laughed. "It might be for a 7-year-old, but for Mommy, it could be really important." She hesitated, unsure how much to share with her daughter about their precarious financial situation. Since the divorce, she'd tried to shield Zoe from adult worries, but the truth was that their savings were dwindling. The freelance work had been inconsistent at best, and the interview at Mason and Blackwell had represented security, a steady paycheck, benefits, stability. "Will there be other kids there?" Zoe asked, picking the cucumber out of her sandwich half. The question jolted Rachel back to reality. She hadn't even considered childcare. The summit would run for 3 days, and she couldn't exactly bring Zoe to professional networking events. Panic began to bubble up again. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. We'll figure something out," By the time they landed in Chicago, it was nearly midnight. Zoe had fallen asleep on the plane, and Rachel carried her drowsy daughter through O'Hare to the taxi stand, mentally calculating the cost of the cab ride against her dwindling credit card limit. The Grand Milan Hotel was exactly as intimidating as Rachel had feared, all gleaming marble and uniformed doormen. She'd chosen it for her stay only because Mason and Blackwell had specifically suggested it for interview candidates, and she'd been determined to present herself as their ideal choice, even if it meant stretching her budget to the breaking point. At the reception desk, a poised woman with an elegant updo smiled professionally. "Checking in? Yes, reservation for Morgan, Rachel Morgan." The woman typed briskly. "Ah, yes. 1 room, 3 nights. She glanced at Zoe, who was leaning heavily against Rachel's side, barely awake. "I see you're here for the Horizon Summit. Will you be needing any childcare services during your stay? We offer in-room sitting with qualified staff." Rachel blinked in surprise. How did you know I'm here for the summit?" The receptionist looked momentarily confused. "It's listed with your reservation details. The Horizon block includes complimentary childcare for attendees." Rachel's mind raced. She had booked this room weeks ago, long before finding Daniel Wright's letter. How could her reservation already be associated with the summit, unless... Had the letter not been random at all? Had someone specifically targeted her? "Is everything all right, Ms. Morgan?" the receptionist asked, concern flickering across her features. "Yes, sorry, it's been a long day. And yes, childcare would be wonderful, thank you." After completing the check-in process, Rachel and Zoe were escorted to their room on the 12th floor. It was more luxurious than Rachel had expected. A spacious suite with a separate bedroom, plush furnishings, and a stunning view of the Chicago skyline. "This is like a princess room," Zoe murmured sleepily, as Rachel tucked her into the king-sized bed. "It certainly is," Rachel agreed, wondering again about the room upgrade that the receptionist had mentioned as standard for Summit VIPs. None of this made sense. She was nobody, a struggling single mom and freelance designer, not a VIP of any sort. Once Zoe was asleep, Rachel sat at the desk by the window and opened her laptop. She searched for everything she could find about Daniel Wright and Horizon Enterprises. The company had started as a small tech startup 25 years ago and had grown into a powerhouse, known for innovative marketing solutions and a company culture that regularly landed it on best places to work lists. Daniel Wright's biography was equally impressive. MIT graduate, pioneer in digital marketing analytics, philanthropist, and advocate for women in technology. His foundation had established scholarships and mentoring programs specifically designed to help single parents advance in tech careers. Rachel sat back, her mind whirling. Could it really be coincidence that she, a single mother desperately seeking a break in the digital marketing world, had found his letter? Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. Puzzled, she peered through the peephole to see a hotel staff member holding what appeared to be a garment bag. "Ms. Morgan, I have a delivery for you." Rachel opened the door cautiously. "I didn't order anything." The young man smiled. "Compliments of the summit organizers. All attendees received a welcome package." He handed her the garment bag and a large envelope. After he left, Rachel unzipped the bag to find an elegant black cocktail dress that looked exactly her size, along with a pair of stylish but sensible heels. The envelope contained a summit schedule, a name badge already printed with Rachel Morgan, Creative Director, and a handwritten note. "Rachel, we're delighted you'll be joining us. The opening reception begins at 8 p.m. tomorrow evening in the Grand Ballroom. The enclosed might save you some packing stress. Looking forward to meeting you." Daniel Wright. Rachel sank onto the edge of the bed, the note trembling in her hands. This was no random act of kindness. Daniel Wright knew who she was. But how? And why would the CEO of a billion-dollar company take such an interest in her? Sleep eluded her as theories ricocheted through her mind. Perhaps he'd seen her portfolio online. Maybe one of her freelance projects had caught his attention. Or was there some connection she was missing? Morning came too quickly. After ordering breakfast from room service, another summit perk, she was told when she tried to decline due to cost, Rachel arranged for childcare for Zoe, who was thrilled at the prospect of spending the day in the hotel's supervised kids club. "You look pretty, Mommy," Zoe observed as Rachel examined her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She'd taken extra care with her appearance, applying makeup and styling her shoulder-length brown hair into soft waves. "Thank you, sweetie." Rachel knelt to Zoe's level. "Now you'll be good today, right? Mommy has some very important meetings." Zoe nodded solemnly. "I'll be super good. Maybe the CEO man will give you a job, and we can stay in princess hotels all the time." Rachel laughed, though the comment sent another flutter of anxiety through her. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The summit's morning sessions were held in the hotel's conference center, a maze of meeting rooms and exhibition spaces now filled with technology demonstrations, networking lounges, and presentation theaters. Rachel's marketing background helped her understand most of the technical discussions, but she felt increasingly out of place among the industry executives and established professionals who all seemed to know each other. During a mid-morning coffee break, Rachel found herself standing alone by a refreshment table, scanning name badges and wondering how to initiate a conversation that wouldn't immediately reveal her outsider status. "First time at the summit?" a friendly voice asked from beside her. Rachel turned to see a woman about her age with curly hair and bright green glasses. Her name badge read, "Mia Jackson, Director of Creative Strategy, Horizon Enterprises." "Is it that obvious?" Rachel asked with a self-deprecating smile. "Only because you're actually looking at the presentations instead of just networking," Mia replied with a wink. "I'm Mia, been with Horizon for 8 years now." "Rachel Morgan. I'm actually not sure why I'm here." The words tumbled out before Rachel could stop them. Mia raised an eyebrow, and Rachel quickly explained about the missed flight and the letter. Rather than looking surprised, Mia nodded thoughtfully. "So you're one of Daniel's finds. That explains the buzz." "Buzz?" Rachel asked, her stomach tightening. "Don't worry, it's all good," Mia assured her. "Daniel has a knack for spotting talent in unexpected places. He mentioned bringing in some fresh perspectives this year." She glanced at her watch. "Listen, there's a small breakout session starting in 5 minutes that you should definitely attend. Emerging Trends in Visual Marketing in the Lakeside Room. Trust me." Before Rachel could ask any more questions, Mia was pulled away by a colleague, leaving Rachel more confused than ever, but also intrigued. With nothing to lose, she made her way to the Lakeside Room, wondering what new revelation awaited her there. The Lakeside Room was smaller than the main presentation halls, with perhaps 40 chairs arranged in a semicircle facing a projection screen. Rachel slipped into a seat in the back row just as the lights dimmed. A man in his early 30s with stylish glasses and a confident stride approached the podium. "Welcome to Emerging Trends in Visual Marketing," he began. "I'm Jake Peterson, Creative Director at Horizon, and today we're going to explore how visual storytelling is evolving in the digital space." Rachel leaned forward, notebook ready. This was precisely her area of expertise, the intersection of visual design and marketing strategy. As Jake clicked through his presentation, Rachel found herself nodding along, mentally connecting his points to projects she'd worked on. Then, about 15 minutes in, Jake pulled up a slide that made Rachel's heart stop. It was a series of social media graphics she had designed for a small coffee chain in Boston last year, a project she was particularly proud of, with its distinctive hand-drawn elements and warm color palette. This campaign increased engagement by 340% and foot traffic by 28%, Jake explained. "It's a perfect example of authentic visual storytelling that creates emotional connection." The designer understood that in a crowded marketplace, uniqueness stands out. Rachel's mind raced. How did her work end up in this presentation? The coffee chain had been a small client with just 3 locations, hardly the type of business that would catch the attention of a company like Horizon. Jake continued, showcasing several more campaigns, and to Rachel's astonishment, 2 more of her projects appeared: a website redesign for a local children's charity and a holiday marketing campaign for a boutique jewelry store. Each time, Jake highlighted the exact elements Rachel had been most intentional about in her design process. When the session ended and the lights came up, Rachel remained frozen in her seat as others filed out. Jake was gathering his materials when he looked up and noticed her. "Enjoyed the presentation?" he asked with a friendly smile. Rachel stood on shaky legs and approached the podium. "Those were my designs," she said quietly. "The coffee shop, the charity website, the jewelry campaign, I created those." Jake's expression shifted from confusion to sudden recognition. "You're Rachel Morgan. I should have realized—" He extended his hand. "It's an honor to meet you. Your work is brilliant." Thank you, but I don't understand. How do you even know about my projects? They were for small local businesses. Jake checked his watch. I have another session to run to, but let's talk at lunch. Mia told me you'd be here today. It'll all make sense soon, I promise. Rachel wandered through the next session in a daze, barely registering the speaker's words about digital marketing metrics. By lunchtime, the grand ballroom had been transformed into an elegant dining space with round tables draped in white linens. A hotel staff member directed Rachel to table 7, where she found Mia already seated alongside Jake, and 3 others she didn't recognize. "There she is," Mia exclaimed. "Everyone, this is Rachel Morgan, the designer I was telling you about." Rachel slid into an empty chair, offering a tentative smile. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm just a freelancer who found a letter under an airport seat." A silver-haired woman across the table laughed warmly. "And you think that was an accident? Daniel doesn't do anything by accident." Before Rachel could respond, a hush fell over the room as Daniel Wright himself took the stage. In person, he had the same thoughtful eyes Rachel had seen in photos, and sure enough, he wore a blue tie with tiny white sailboats. He welcomed everyone to the summit and spoke briefly about innovation, requiring both vision and opportunity, before returning to his table near the front of the room. "So," Rachel said, turning back to her table mates, "can someone please explain what's going on? How does Horizon know about my work? Why am I here?" Jake and Mia exchanged glances before Mia leaned forward. "Rachel, Horizon has been tracking promising independent talent for years. Part of my job is identifying designers and marketers who show exceptional creativity, but haven't yet broken into the larger market. Your coffee shop campaign caught our attention 6 months ago," Jake added. "It showed up in our analytics as an outlier. Engagement rates far above industry averages. We started following your work after that." "But why not just contact me normally?" Rachel asked. "Why the elaborate setup with the letter?" Mia smiled. "That's all, Daniel. He believes the most telling thing about a person is how they respond to unexpected opportunities. Some people find the letters and never show up. Others come with demands and expectations. The ones who approach it with curiosity and openness, those are the people Horizon wants." Rachel's mind flashed back to the receptionist's comment about her reservation. "So my hotel booking being connected to the summit wasn't a coincidence either." "Daniel makes sure the logistics are seamless once someone finds a letter," said the silver-haired woman, who introduced herself as Barbara, Horizon's chief of operations. "He doesn't want practical obstacles to prevent talent from walking through the door." As lunch progressed, Rachel learned that Horizon was launching a new creative division focused on helping small and medium businesses develop distinctive brand identities, exactly the work Rachel loved most. The conversation flowed easily, with her table mates showing genuine interest in her ideas and experiences. After lunch, Rachel attended 2 more sessions, her confidence growing with each interaction. People seemed genuinely interested in her perspective, and several exchanged business cards with her. By late afternoon, she found herself actually enjoying the summit, rather than feeling like an imposter. While Zoe napped in their room, exhausted from a day of swimming and crafts at the kids' club, Rachel prepared for the evening reception. The black dress fit perfectly, its simple elegance making her feel both professional and beautiful. As she fastened a silver necklace, one of the few nice pieces she'd kept after selling most of her jewelry to cover expenses post-divorce, Rachel hardly recognized the confident woman in the mirror. The grand ballroom had been transformed yet again, this time into a sophisticated reception space with ambient lighting, live jazz music, and stations serving gourmet appetizers. Rachel accepted a glass of champagne from a passing server and scanned the room, spotting Mia and Jake in conversation near a large ice sculpture of the Horizon logo. "Ms. Morgan." Rachel turned to find Daniel Wright standing beside her, his blue sailboat tie perfectly knotted against a crisp white shirt. "Mr. Wright," she managed, her heartbeat accelerating, "I've been hoping to thank you for the invitation." His smile reached his eyes, creating fine crinkles at the corners. "I'm glad you found it. Not everyone does." "About that," Rachel said, gathering her courage, "I've learned today that it wasn't random at all. Your team has apparently been monitoring my work?" Daniel nodded, unembarrassed. "Traditional recruitment misses too much talent, especially among people with complicated lives. Single parents, caregivers, those who can't follow conventional career paths, but have extraordinary abilities. He gestured toward a quieter corner of the room. Would you walk with me? There's something I'd like to discuss. As they moved away from the crowd, Daniel continued. 27 years ago, I really did miss a flight at Logan. I was a young programmer with a job interview at what was then one of the biggest tech companies. I was devastated, certain my career was over before it began. And someone convinced you to start your own company instead? Rachel asked, recalling the letter. Not just someone, Daniel replied, his expression softening. A young graphic designer named Elizabeth Morgan. She was sketching logo concepts while waiting for her flight, and we got to talking. She showed me how visual identity shapes perception, how design and technology could work together to transform marketing. By morning, we had sketched the foundations of what would become Horizon. Rachel nearly stumbled, her champagne sloshing dangerously. Elizabeth Morgan. That was my mother-in-law's name. Daniel nodded slowly. I know. Elizabeth and I lost touch after she moved to California with her husband. By the time Horizon was successful enough that I tried to find her to offer her a position, I learned she had passed away. Cancer. 10 years ago, Rachel whispered, before I ever met her son. Tom, my ex-husband, never talked much about her, except to say she was artistic. She was brilliant, Daniel said firmly. And when one of my talent scouts flagged your work, I recognized the same distinctive style, the same understanding of how visuals communicate emotion. When I saw your last name was Morgan, I did some research. Finding out you were Elizabeth's daughter-in-law, it felt like life coming full circle. Rachel's mind whirled with this revelation. Her ex-mother-in-law, a woman she'd never met, had unknowingly shaped the trajectory of her career. So the letter under the seat was placed specifically for you, Daniel confirmed. I needed to know if you had Elizabeth's spirit as well as her talent, the willingness to take a chance on the unexpected. Before Rachel could process this revelation, a commotion near the ballroom entrance caught their attention. A man's raised voice carried across the room, and Rachel felt the blood drain from her face as she recognized its owner. Tom Morgan, her ex-husband, was arguing with security, his face flushed with anger as he scanned the crowd, looking directly for her. That's my ex-husband, Rachel whispered to Daniel, instinctively stepping back. How would he even know I'm here? Daniel's expression darkened. Security will handle it. Let me... Rachel. Tom's voice cut through the murmuring crowd as he spotted her. He pushed past a server, ignoring the security personnel following him. What the hell is going on? You were supposed to be at an interview. Conversations around them quieted as heads turned toward the disruption. Rachel felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment, but she lifted her chin and stepped forward, meeting Tom halfway to minimize the scene. Tom, this isn't the place, she said in a low, controlled voice. How did you even find me? Tom ran a hand through his dark hair, a familiar gesture from their marriage that once signaled stress, but now just irritated her. The babysitter, our regular one, called to check if Zoe was feeling better after being sick last week. When I said Zoe was with you in Chicago for a job interview, she mentioned something about a hotel message saying Zoe had a great time at some kids' club today. I called Mason and Blackwell, and they said you'd cancelled. So I called every major hotel in Chicago until I found where you were registered. Rachel blinked, momentarily thrown by the reminder of how their lives remained entangled despite the divorce. That's quite the investigation, but it doesn't explain why you flew to Chicago. Tom lowered his voice, suddenly aware of the attention they were attracting. Your sister called me. Worried. Said you weren't answering texts, that you'd been stressed about money. I thought... He hesitated. I thought you might be having some kind of breakdown, making reckless decisions. Rachel felt a flash of indignation. So you appointed yourself my guardian? I'm a grown woman making professional choices, Tom, not having a breakdown. Security had reached them and Daniel stepped forward smoothly. Mr. Morgan, I'm Daniel Wright, CEO of Horizon Enterprises. I understand your concern, but I assure you Rachel is here as our honored guest. Perhaps we could continue this conversation somewhere more private. The mention of Daniel's name and title visibly startled Tom. Rachel could almost see the wheels turning in his head as he reassessed the situation. Fine, he said stiffly. Daniel led them to a small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. Once inside, Rachel turned to Tom, arms crossed. You had no right to barge in like this. Zoe is perfectly fine. and I'm here for a professional opportunity." Tom had the decency to look somewhat abashed. "Your sister was genuinely worried. You've been under so much pressure since—" He faltered. "Since you left?" Rachel supplied, the old hurt flaring briefly before subsiding. After 14 months, the sharp pain had dulled to a resigned acceptance. "I've been worried too," Tom admitted. "About you and Zoe. The child support barely covers basics. I know that. When I heard you were at some luxury hotel instead of your interview, Mr. Morgan," Daniel interrupted gently. "Your concern is understandable, but perhaps I can clarify the situation." He explained about the summit, Rachel's talent, and the opportunity Horizon was offering, carefully omitting the connection to Elizabeth. As Daniel spoke, Rachel watched Tom's expression shift from suspicious to confused to something like reluctant admiration. It was a look she remembered from early in their relationship, before familiarity and routine had extinguished his respect for her abilities. "You're offering her a job?" Tom asked finally. "Not exactly," Daniel replied. "We're proposing a partnership. Rachel would head a new division focusing on brand development for emerging businesses, with creative control and profit sharing. Based on what we've seen of her work, it could be quite lucrative." Tom looked at Rachel with new eyes. "I had no idea your freelancing had caught this kind of attention." "Neither did I," Rachel said honestly. She turned to Daniel. "But I still don't understand why all the secrecy, the mysterious letter. If you knew who I was, why not just call me?" Daniel smiled. "Because talent and opportunity aren't enough. The most successful people I know share a certain quality, the courage to leap into the unknown. If I'd simply called with a job offer, you might have accepted out of necessity rather than vision. I needed to see if you had the same spark Elizabeth had, the willingness to follow an unexpected path." At the mention of his mother's name, Tom's head snapped up. "Elizabeth, my mother? What does she have to do with this?" Daniel looked at Rachel, silently asking permission. When she nodded, he shared the story of meeting Elizabeth at Logan Airport all those years ago, how her insights had helped shape what became Horizon Enterprises, and how he'd recognized her influence in Rachel's design approach. Tom listened, his expression softening with each detail about the mother he'd lost as a teenager. "She never mentioned any of this," he said quietly. "Dad always said her design work was just a hobby." "It was far more than that," Daniel said firmly. "Your mother had extraordinary talent. I've always regretted not finding her sooner, not having the chance to show her what her ideas helped create." A heavy silence fell over the room. Rachel studied Tom's face, seeing grief and regret mingled with something new, a dawning realization. "I didn't know," he said finally, looking at Rachel. "About Mom, about your work. I always thought your design was just something to fill time until a real career came along." The admission hung in the air between them, an unwitting echo of his father's dismissal of Elizabeth's talent. Rachel saw genuine remorse in Tom's eyes, but also recognized that it changed nothing between them. Their marriage had broken under the weight of 1,000 small misunderstandings and dismissals, not one dramatic moment. "Mr. Morgan," Daniel said, checking his watch, "I need to return to my guests, but please feel free to stay for the reception if you'd like." He turned to Rachel. "Take whatever time you need. We can continue our discussion tomorrow." After Daniel left, Rachel and Tom sat in awkward silence for a moment. "I'm sorry," Tom said finally, "for barging in. For a lot of things." Rachel nodded. "I know. But you should probably go, Tom. I have early sessions tomorrow and I need to check on Zoe. Can I at least see her before I leave? I've missed her." Rachel hesitated, then relented. "She's with the hotel sitter. I'll text you the room number." As they walked back toward the ballroom, Tom asked, "Are you going to take it? The partnership?" "I don't know yet. It would mean moving to Chicago." She glanced at him. "That would complicate your visitation with Zoe." Tom was quiet for a moment. "I've been offered a position in Milwaukee," he said eventually. "I was going to tell you after your interview. It's only about an hour and a half from Chicago." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "That's convenient timing." "Maybe it's meant to be," Tom said with a hesitant smile. "Like your airport letter." Rachel didn't return the smile. "This isn't a reconciliation, Tom." "I know, but maybe it could be a better co-parenting arrangement, for Zoe's sake." At the mention of their daughter, Rachel softened slightly. "We'll see." After arranging for Tom to visit with Zoe, Rachel returned to the reception. She found Mia and Jake at a high-top table, deep in discussion about a design project. "Everything okay?" Mia asked, eyeing Rachel with concern. "Better than okay, actually," Rachel replied, surprising herself with the truth of it. Sometimes confronting the past helps you move forward. The next morning, after Tom had returned to Boston with promises to call Zoe that evening, Rachel sat with Daniel in his suite, discussing the details of the partnership offer. The terms were more generous than she could have imagined. Creative freedom, a substantial salary, profit sharing, flexible hours to accommodate Zoe's schedule, and relocation assistance. "There's one more thing," Daniel said, sliding a folder across the table. "Elizabeth left these with me that night at the airport. Sketches, concepts, notes about visual communication. I've kept them all these years, waiting for the right moment. I think they belong with you now." Rachel opened the folder to find yellowed pages filled with flowing handwriting and beautiful hand-drawn designs, the creative legacy of a woman she'd never met, but whose path had somehow entwined with her own. "I wish I had known her," Rachel said softly. "In a way you do," Daniel replied. "Through your own work. Creative spirit has a way of echoing through generations, finding new expressions." 3 months later, Rachel stood in her new office overlooking Lake Michigan, the walls decorated with framed examples of her work alongside several of Elizabeth's sketches. On her desk sat a photo of Zoe in their new apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom in a family-friendly neighborhood just 15 minutes from Horizon's headquarters. The transition hadn't been seamless, moves never were, but Zoe had adapted quickly to her new school, making friends and thriving with the stability of Rachel's new position. Tom had kept his word about the Milwaukee job, making it possible for regular weekend visits with minimal disruption to Zoe's routine. Rachel's division had already signed 10 clients, with a waiting list growing weekly. Her team of 5 designers shared her vision for authentic visual storytelling, and Daniel had given her complete creative control. As she prepared for an afternoon client meeting, Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Gate C42 at O'Hare just opened. Ready for our letter adventure?" Rachel smiled, remembering Daniel's explanation of his airport letter tradition. Every quarter, he and a few trusted colleagues placed 10 letters throughout Chicago's airports, each offering opportunity to someone who might need it, just as Elizabeth's chance encounter had once changed his life. Today would be Rachel's first time participating. In her bag was an envelope sealed with blue wax, containing an invitation to Horizon's mentorship program for emerging designers. She had no idea who might find it, or how it might change their life. But the not knowing was part of the magic. Sometimes, Rachel had learned, the most beautiful journeys begin with a missed connection.